Hello and welcome to the Wren Den. I'm Wren, this is the Den, and today we are going to try crochet tapestry. So I was inspired to look in this direction because I was thinking about designs for the Zelda jacket and whether it would be fun to do the back panel as like a piece of crochet that's then stitched on for like fun texture reasons. And also I follow a couple of people on Instagram who make crochet tapestries and they look really cool and I want to give it a go. So to combine those two things a little bit, I have taken a screenshot from, well, it's from Tears of the Kingdom, but honestly, I don't think you would be able to tell the difference much between that and Breath of the Wild. I took the screenshot from, which both of these are Zelda games for the uninitiated. I took the screenshot from Tears of the Kingdom because the floating islands give you a better, and the ruins give you a better vantage point for the shot that I wanted of the Dueling Peaks, which are these two dramatic sort of like mountain that's been split in two, and there's a river coming out of the middle of it. And I wanted to also take advantage of the fact that Tears of the Kingdom is slightly more high def, although I don't think it really matters. As you can see, I have taken the screenshot and then put a grid over it and then coloured the grid, so it's a very kind of pixel art sort of style to work out how I'm going to do the tapestry. Obviously, when it came to colours, I realised that I have almost none of the colours that I want to use for the picture, so I bought a big bag of yarn from Wool Warehouse, which has been sitting in the corner of the room for about 2 months because then I immediately got stuck into other things. And I really want to A, start using up this giant bag of yarn, and B, give crochet tapestry a go. This isn't like gonna be like an intensive project. I'm gonna do like little bits here and there, so probably you might see a little bit of me working it up, but it's probably going to be more kind of like updates. One trick I have thought of in advance is because the first chain row of crochet always tends to be a little shorter than the rest of it, even like I'll try and do that as loose as possible, and even then it will still be shorter. And I saw someone online suggest that the way to solve that is to make the chain row in just on a larger hook, which maybe should have occurred to me. That was the easiest way to make it bigger, but it didn't. So I'm very grateful to people online for figuring that out. So I'm going to do the whole thing in single crochet because I want it to have a nice kind of even and dense weave. I'm going to be doing the first row in probably a 5mm hook, for example, and then I'll do the rest of it in a 4mm just to try and make the chain a bit more even. Obviously, like there's some of that I can solve with blocking at the end, but some of it'll be easier just if it's looser to begin with. I have done kind of images in flat crochet before, but I've never tried anything this kind of artistic. So and I think it's going to be quite big because I tried to do an image at half this size using half of the same amount of squares on making the grid bigger, and it just came out looking, even on the tablet, I've been doing all of the stuff in Procreate, the sort of designs in Procreate, and even in there it came out as very simplistic and like it wouldn't read necessarily. So I think big is the way to go, and then I can always decide that that's impractical and make a smaller one, but I want to start big because I think it'd be fun. So that's the plan. I'm gonna probably just sort of mess around with that for a bit and then come back to you when it's either working or it's not. So yeah, wish me luck. Okay, update. I am 23 rows into the whole thing is 63 rows and I'm 23 rows in. You can sort of see the river in the middle. That's coming up quite nicely. And then there's the sort of beach on this side and then the kind of darker foliage and stuff on this side. I am enjoying it. I am, however, currently attached to 5 and a little bit balls of yarn because I'm trying to do as much as possible, feed the colours underneath other colours to try and avoid as many like ends as possible, because like, I mean, you can tell like even with doing that, there's a lot of ends that I'm gonna have to weave in at the end. But It's going well. It's looking really even. There is a picture emerging. I was a little bit worried earlier on that it would be too sort of pastel and too muted, but actually I think it's not too bad. And there'll be a lot of like kind of blue and then the bright blue of the sky, which I think the whole point of the design is that the mountain, the Dueling Peaks mountain, is the most sort of the eye-catching bit. So this is still kind of just background. This has taken me 2 and a bit days, pretty much non-stop. Partly because I had to... So at first, I was going to start from the top of the design and work my way down, because the top line of the design is all one colour, and I didn't want to have to change colour during the first chain, because I felt like that was just setting myself up to be annoyed about it. But I got like 6 rows into that, and I think I took a picture. I could tell that it was upside down. I don't know if you'd be able to tell at a distance, or you know, once it's finished, if it would matter, but I was starting to be irritated by the fact that I could tell it was going to be the stitches were upside down. So I unraveled all of that. This is 120 stitches across, by the way. So unraveling 6 rows of that was quite intense. So the first chain had 3 colours in it instead of just the one. And basically, I think if you're going to change colour mid-chain, you have to then immediately do the first row, just to make sure that it's all secured together, because otherwise there's not a huge amount of holding it together at that point. This is my reference, the sort of pattern that I'm using, which I hope you can sort of see. So I've got an orange bar, which is indicating the line that I'm currently on. And every row that when I get to a new row, I count each section of the colours, so I can see how many stitches I need to do for that section, rather than counting them as I'm going, because I think that's more annoying. And then I've got at the side here, I've got arrows to indicate which way I should be going when I hit those lines, just to make sure that I don't get confused and start to do it backwards, which I did do one time. I got myself turned around and started from the wrong side. So the arrows are definitely helping. And then to make sure that I'm getting the right colours, every time I hit a new colour, I'll basically, you can colour select. This is in Procreate, by the way. I'll basically colour select the colour, and then come down here to my kind of key, and select until the whole circle matches, so that I can tell that it's definitely the matching colour. So it is vital that all of the balls of yarn stick with their labels, which so far I have managed. There was only one ball that I've had to like fully like turn in, or skein, I suppose, that I've had to turn into a ball so far, because this one was just getting really tangled. So in the end I thought it's actually just easier to roll it up. So what I've done is I've done a hole punch through the label and folded it in half, put a hole punch through it, and then the yarn threads through that, which so far has been working quite well. Some of these colours are so similar that I know if the labels go away from the skeins, I simply won't be able to tell the difference. Like, my colour matching is not my strongest suit, and I would hate to get like 3 rows into something and realise I was using the wrong colour. So by and large, I have been not relying on my eyes, but relying on the key, on the pattern, and what it actually says on the label. And that's been working, I think. What I'm going to do, because I'm curious, I'm going to do the next row and film it so that I know how long it takes to do a row. Because obviously that's, you know, some rows take longer than others. If you have to do a colour change, it takes longer. But I think it would be fun to know kind of what your average row is taking in terms of time. So I'm going to try that. So hang out with me while we do that, maybe for a bit. So I've just got to the next colour change, and I thought I would show you. This is just the way that I do it. So I'm halfway through. In fact, let me come out. This is the last stitch. I'm about to do the last stitch of the previous colour. So you get halfway through, you pull up one loop, and then you're going to bring up, give yourself enough slack on the yarn for a start. And then I'm going to bring up from here the next colour. So that's all the way along there. Do it like that. Give it plenty of slack, pull it through. So we need to do 37 of this colour. So to hide this line that we've just made, I'm just going to do it inside of that stitch. And it just kind of pulls it up as you go, which is why you need it to be like not super tight. 3, 4. And then depending slightly on where the colour change is, but I find, again, my yarns are a bit tangled, so excuse me. So that line is facing that way at the moment. To make it feel a bit more natural in the angle of it, I actually am going to go under this and across a little bit to the next stitch, so sort of one further than you think you're going to need, and then pull that through like that. And then it sits kind of upright but right next to a previous one. That's my preferred method of doing it. Obviously other people will have other opinions, but that's how I've been doing it, and that works for me, and it feels nice and secure. It is much easier to work at this sort of thing if you've got a table, I will say. And then, so in this section, you can't quite see it, I'm not sure, but there is, I have run, in the previous row, I ran another colour along the underneath of this one. So when you get to a point where you have run another colour underneath, like in this section, you can only really see it if you look really closely, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist on it. I find that the best way to hide the colour that you've run along the top of the previous, like underneath the previous row, is to actually go underneath. So here would be just on the stitch, and then underneath the thread that you ran along the top, and pull it up into the next stitch, especially if the colour that you ran is the same colour as the colour that you're doing along the top. I find that that's quite an effective way to disguise those a little bit. 32, 33, and then I'm going to need this in a minute, but not right now, so I'm going to hook it above the stitch I'm about to stitch into, go into that, and then line it along the top, hold that with the piece, and then crochet as normal with the colour that you're still doing. There you go. It's a little bit fiddly, but that pulls the colour along with you, so that it's sort of ready to deploy at the point at which you get to the end, to the point where you need it. So on the last one, get halfway through the stitch, and then we change the colour. And then we are going to need the green, the lighter green that we've been using. So I'm going to just hold that along the top again. I'm going to do 5 of this. 1, 5, and then I'm just pulling the stitch we've been running along the top. I'm just pulling it a little bit towards to make sure there's no slack there. So 1 more of these, and then we move to this grey. So 120 stitches just took me about 20 minutes, give or take, with 10 colour changes. So yeah, it is a fairly chunky project, but I am really enjoying it. What I really love is being able to see the design sort of manifest itself. Like just the way that the river is coming up is really cool, and the reflection in the water of the gap between the peaks and the beach. And then over here, there's a little path that goes off into the woods. And because I know this game like so well, this is such a familiar place to me, and it's just such a joy to render it in crochet. I think I might try and make the next one a little bit smaller, maybe, but I'm really enjoying the sort of detail and the impression that this scale is bringing to it. I am thinking, rather than put it on this wall because it's just so big, what I might do is put dowels across the top of the bottom like I was going to, and then hang it over the bookcase somewhere to be like a shelf cover, so like maybe one of the messier shelves can look like art instead, because that might be really fun. But we'll see. It's hard to gauge. So I've done 24 rows now out of 63. I've done a third, or just over a third. This is a big project. I'm already thinking about, would it be cool to also do Death Mountain, which is the volcano, which would have really like different colors and would be really like bright and cool, and like maybe find a way to do is it Hebra, that's the really icy one? Yes. And like have a kind of triptych almost of like 3 of the big kind of peaks of the world. I think that would be really cool, which would mean I would have to stay at the same sort of scale and size to try and have the 3 match each other. But obviously that's jumping ahead a little bit. So I will check in with you. I sort of would like to check in, like having done the next third. We'll see. If anything interesting happens in the meantime, then I will check in, obviously, as well. But yeah, we're kind of, we're far enough in that I'm like, I am going to finish this. It's just how long it's going to take. So wish me luck. Update. So this is where I've got to. It actually looks really good on the screen. I'm too close to it, so I can't, like, it doesn't look, it looks weird from here, but like river for sure. I'm not sure that there's actually like 2 accent colors in the hills, and I'm not really sure that they're both showing up, but we won't be able to tell whether that makes a difference or not until I finished and blocked it, probably, because it's a bit lumpy. Now I'm halfway through row 40 of 63, so I'm about, good timing, so I'm about here. So we're starting to hit much more simple colour, not having to change the colour quite so often. So I've only attached to 3 balls of yarn and then sort of 3 or 4 little bitty bits just for finishing things off. The sort of accent colours in the hills, in the mountains, has been quite tricky, just because it's like, do 4 stitches and then you won't need that colour again. So I'm just having to keep track of what I'm needing to use again and what I'm not, so that I can make sure that I'm not attached more times than I need to be to any particular yarn. Being almost 2/3 of the way through, I have learned a couple of things. One, the aspect ratio is definitely going to be off. This is really long. And it's going to be like maybe another that much longer, like taller. So it's going to have a very wide aspect ratio, whereas the picture is very sort of, not square, but like that's probably 4/3, and then this is going to be something else entirely. It's just not the same. So maybe for future ones, other than for the triptych idea I had, which is to do the 3, like this Death Mountain and Hebra Mountain, to make a kind of like Zelda Mountain triptych, other than like what, because I would have to be tied to making it roughly the same size and certainly the same kind of ratio for the other 2, so that it didn't look weird. But I think if I was going to do this again, turn a landscape into a design, I would take into account that the stitches are clearly wider than they are tall. So they are not in fact square. So maybe I need to make the image even narrower, like almost a square, and then it would extend out into a rectangle. And maybe practice that at a slightly smaller scale, so having to do less work to find out whether that's the way to do it or not. Not that I'm not enjoying how this is coming out. I think it's really cool, but I think if you were going to do like a portrait of like a creature or a person, or even something close up, like I had one design drafted for a horse running along, which let me see if I can show you. At smaller scale, I sort of had this drafted up. If you've got like a creature in it, I feel like it's going to be super obvious that there's something funky going on in the aspect ratio or like structures or whatever. So I think if I was gonna do anything else, I think I'm gonna have to just take that into account and try and make the picture narrower to begin with, like squish it so that it extends out into its proper format at the end. The other thing that I figured out is that I don't need nearly as much yarn for this as I thought I did. This is still all of the yarn I bought for this project in all of the different colours, and I really haven't scratched the edge of any of them. I probably could have bought 50 grams for almost everything in here. What I might do once I'm finished is weigh the balls and work out like how much I've used of each colour, because I think that would be useful for, like, again, doing another one and getting the right amount of yarn. But I also think it would be very forgiving if you needed to buy another 50 grams and it just was from a different dye lot. I don't think it would really matter in this format. So that's always a possibility. So those are the two things I think I've learned is it turns out wider than you think, and you don't need as much yarn as you think you do. I was going to crochet a little bit in front of the camera, but our young man is screaming and crying outside. He's a bit needy today. So, in fact, hold please. He is a bit needy today, so I am actually going to go and do this upstairs so that he can cuddle. I think the rain's freaking him out. And hopefully I will see you again when it's finished. Bye! Okay, I'm going to do the thing that people do for giant blankets. Okay, you ready? How good does that look? Honestly, in person, like really close up to it, I'm a little bit like, well, I'm not sure it's quite what I was sort of aiming for, blah, blah, blah. But like from a distance, in the, I can't, it's too big, I can't look at the viewfinder and see. From a distance, it looks pretty good. So obviously we're not finished because it needs blocking. It's not bad, actually. Like the edges, like there's a little bit of a wiggle. I think the blue is a little bit more protruding than the other colours, but the edges are honestly not bad. It's mostly just to get it as kind of, I think it needs stretching out a little bit because it is a little bit wiggly in places, particularly. So I was worried that the sky and this highlight on the mountain was too similar, but actually in the viewfinder, it's different enough that it looks like firmly like highlight instead of sky. So that's nice. If I was going to do exactly the same thing again, which unlikely, that's not really my vibe, I would probably change some of the colours. I'm not 100% convinced by, again, on the viewfinder it looks very good. I think the river, the main colour of the river, is too grey. It's a kind of grey blue, but then in the original image it's kind of a green blue, and I worry that if it was a green blue it would blend in too much with the green around it. So maybe this is fine. The path into the woods over here has turned out really well. That corner's curling so you can't see it super well, but that's turned out very nicely. It is huge and it is wider than I had planned. It's obviously the aspect ratio, like I was saying, of the stitches. Obviously a single crochet stitch is not square, turns out. But I don't think, because it's a landscape, I don't think it's messed with the image too much. I'm going to block it. I'm going to wet it sort of fairly thoroughly, and then roll it up in like a couple of tea towels or something to get it in here without dripping everywhere. Loosely, my plan is to have it hang over the shelves. If I'd cared about this more than the experiment of the tapestry itself and the theory of that, what I probably would have done was swatched it to try and calculate the width of one of these bookcases in stitches, and which I could still do, I guess, if I measured this against that and then did some maths about it. I guess I could use this as a template to work out how wide those are in single crochet. Maybe I'll do that for some other thing. And I don't think that the other two in the triptych will follow fairly quickly either, because this was a lot of work, and it benefited a lot from the fact that I was off work for health reasons, and didn't really have a lot else to do, and then I had a couple of big train journeys. It's 120 stitches along and 63 rows, so it is quite big, but I'm really pleased with it. I think it will come out of the blocking looking really nice, so I'm going to go wet it now and leave it probably overnight to block. And then I will find some sticks, and then once I've got sticks we will do final reveal, which might be a while. So I still don't know where this video is going to come in the chronology of this channel. I've been filming a lot of bits and pieces recently. Anyway, I'm starting to rabble, so I'm going to stop. Blocking. She's dry. I'm really pleased with it. I even think the aspect ratio thing is not so much of a problem, because it's a landscape. It's still so recognizable to me anyway what's going on, and I think this is definitely coming across as shadow, as like highlight on the mountain rather than sky, to me anyway. Let me know what you think, obviously, because I made it, so I have a different opinion. I don't have sticks yet, it's been busy, so I haven't managed to get to the stick shop, otherwise known as Hobbycraft. In the meantime, I'm going to roll this up and hope it doesn't distort it too badly. I think I probably will put it on front of here somewhere. I've moved some stuff around on the bookcases. This one is entirely kits, so I need to deal with that a little bit. Which might be a video or a series of videos, or like my whole 2026. Anyway, that's an aside. So I will show you again when we have sticks, and then we will enjoy it displayed, I hope. Sticks. These were £2 each from Hobbycraft. I almost forgot that I needed sticks. We went to Hobbycraft for more embroidery floss, and I was suddenly like, I needed sticks. So we went and found the balsa dowels, which I think are light enough. The sticks are barely long enough. I thought I was going to have to chop off some excess, but actually I think we're about right in terms of size. I might chop up some excess once I worked out how to make the ends right, but I like a little bit of excess on each side just in cases. So all we need to do is sew these to this. So that's what we're going to do. I should say, mostly for my own records, for when I forget, these are 5/16 by 36 inches hardwood dowels from Hobbycraft. So I know the tapestry is 60 stitches long. So in order to measure the right amount of yarn, for the top row, we'll deal with the bottom row in a minute because there's a bunch of different colours. For the top row, I'm going to use the colour that matches the top row. You see that? To tie it on, because I think that's nice. And then we'll work out what to do with the bottom one. I might just pick one of the more neutral or more like frequent colours in the bottom row. So for the purposes of working out how much I need, what I'm going to do is a thing I've learned from knitting, from doing a long tail cast on in knitting, is I'm just going to hold the tail here in my hand with the stick. I might actually start further up the stick. And then I'm going to wrap this round here 60 times. I can't wrap and count and talk at the same time, but I'm going to wrap it round here 60 times and then add a little bit for, like, you know, give, because all I'm going to do is like whip it on. So if I do that, I'll know roughly how much I need to use, and then I can cut that off. 8, 9, 10, and then every 10, I'm just going to push it down. You know how I said this is 60 stitches? I actually think it might be 120. I don't know where I got 60 from. There's 60 stitches in the top of a sock, which is the other thing that I'm making at the moment. But I don't really know why that would be relevant. Anyway, I'm going to do this 120 times, and then we can start the sewing. Okay, so that's 120. This is a very long stick. So what I'm going to do now is take that off. Oh, it comes off much smoother off the knitting needles. This is going to be more annoying. And holding where I got to, and that will tell me how much. In fact, I don't know why I'm making this so complicated. I'm going to cut where I've decided the end of the thing is, and then I could just slide it off. That's easier, isn't it? So now I need to find a yarn needle, and we can get to stitching this on. Okay, that looks awesome. So then I need to do the same on the bottom. Now the bottom is trickier because it's 1, 2, 3 colours. So the question is, do I pick the middle colour, which is quite neutral, or definitely not this one because it takes up the shortest amount of the length and it's the brightest. So I guess the question is middle one, and then it'll go out to either side, or this end one, which is a little bit darker, which is the river. I want to do this one, I think. I think it's more neutral. My worry is that this is darker, and so that on top of that is going to look weird, whereas this on top of this might kind of blend a little bit more. Let's hope. Okay, so there's a couple of things going on. One, somewhere I've stretched something because the sides are a little bit wiggly. I think the bottom is something's up with it, and I don't quite know what it is. Because when I blocked it, it was not square, but it was all the edges. I blocked all the edges straight, so I don't really know why there's like such a wibble. I'm sort of hoping that as it hangs, the weight of it will kind of pull it taut and stop that being a problem. So I'm just going to tie a string to either end and then find somewhere to hang it. Okay. How that looks in real life is stupid and wiggly, but it looks quite nice in frame. Can we just... Yeah, I think it just needs to be hung for a bit, to be honest. And that might just go away. I'm going to weave the ends in because otherwise I won't. And then I'll do some close-ups so you can see that it, hopefully, I mean, yeah, we'll do a little reveal montage. So that's it. There it is. I'm honestly like, the way that the actual tapestry came together and that the design works, I'm really happy with. The like paler blue in the middle of the mountains is really nice. I'm a little bit bummed about the way that it looks now that it's hung up. I don't know. Maybe I made the wrong choice by not crocheting round, like just doing single crochet around the edge to sort of turn it into a square. Maybe I made a mistake by not blocking it and then immediately hanging it. But like it looks all right in this frame, and yeah, I'll give it like a little bit of time just to see if it's going to sort of even out now that it's hung up. Yeah, I'm really proud of the effort, but I think I've definitely got more to learn in terms of the sort of art method. Like I wouldn't make one as a gift, for example, because I am not completely happy with the way that it, yeah, the way that it sits and the way that it hangs. I wonder if also I should have been more careful about like trying to find one brand of yarn that had all of the colors, because it would make the tension slightly better. But I think that was going to be either I was either going to have to compromise on type of yarn or color to get everything that I wanted. So, you know, I guess the other thing to do would be to sort of try and weave like a wire or another rod or something down the sides to sort of hold it in a kind of squared frame. I don't know. If you've got any experience with this sort of thing or you have any suggestions, please do let me know in the comments. Because like I do really like it. I do really like the way like that it looks in the frame. I just wish that it looked slightly more squared in real life. But it is going to live there. I do really, I like what it does to the top of this shelf. So yeah, and I've got 2 more sticks if I want to make another one. So I could go straight from blocking to hanging and see if it makes a difference. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it made sense. It's taken probably a couple of months to do this whole project, so I am hoping that I have filmed enough things to make a coherent video out of it. But I hope you've enjoyed nevertheless. Take care, and I will see you on the next project.